And one bit of advice I've got for your younger listeners out there is early on, don't worry about money, put mentors over money. The money isn't that great when you start out anyway. So if you get a good mentor, you're heading in the right direction. And without that, it's going to be hard. So I asked my mentor, Al Clark, what do I do here? And he said, the first thing you've got to do is to make it special to play for Huron. And Jacob, me being a smart aleck, I said, well, we're already the worst team in America. That's pretty special. And he said, no. He said, the easiest way to make it special is to make it hard.
This episode is brought to you by Namely. Running HR for a mid-sized business means you need software that can keep up with all you do, so you can focus on strategy, culture, and keeping your employees happy. That's why you should check out Namely, the all-in-one HR solution that makes life easier for your employees, your boss, and you. Namely's HR platform covers your essential HR and compliance needs in one place. Whether you have 50 or 1,000 employees, Namely's all-in-one integrated platform is designed to be used by everyone every day. With a mobile app and elegant UI, Namely lets employees request PTO, appreciate peers, review their pay stubs, and even answer their own HR questions. Namely offers it all, from onboarding and payroll to time tracking, benefits, employee engagement, and so much more. You'll finally have the time and data you need to drive the initiatives your company really cares about. That's why you should simplify your HR processes with Namely. So I've arranged a special offer for all of my listeners. Right now, you can get a free month of unlimited access to Namely's all-in-one HR platform, but you have to go to namely.com/FOW. That's namely.com/FOW, and you will get 1 month of Namely completely for free. Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Leading the Future of Work. My guest today, John Bacon, and he is the best-selling author of a book called Let Them Lead: Unexpected Lessons in Leadership from America's Worst High School Hockey Team. John, thank you for joining me.
Thank you, Jacob. And sad to say it's all true.
So I was going to ask you about that. So when you say America's worst high school hockey team, some people out there might be thinking, yeah, maybe they were bad, but were they really America's worst high school hockey team? So how bad were you guys?
Well, they were 0, 22, and 3. If you non-sports fans out there, because I know it's not a sports podcast, the 0 is where the wins go, people. So 0 wins, 22 losses, 3 ties. That was in the 99-2000 season. The year before that, they won 3 games out of the 25 or so. There's a website called CSCHO, I think it is, that ranks all the teams in the nation. They just started the year after this, but I made a pretty good case in the book that they would have qualified as the nation's worst based on comparative records and geography and so on.
That's crazy.
All right, so it really ranked dead last.
It really was.
Yeah, out of 1,000 plus teams, that's not good. So yeah, Jacob, a lot of teams might have sucked, but these guys, we aspire to suck. That was the goal. So
yeah. Okay, so we're going to talk about that today, but before we jump into that, give us a little bit of background information about you. I mean, how did you get involved with coaching this team? What was your background in?
Sure. I grew up in Ann Arbor, Michigan, home of the University of Michigan. I went to Ann Arbor Huron High School. That's the school I ultimately coached. Our mascot is, in fact, Jacob the River Rats. I'm not making that up either. We're the only one in the country. A lot of lions and tigers and bears out there, but only one River Rats. We had a very good team my senior year. We were a Final Four team. I was not a very good player, so I'll get into shortly. Third and fourth line kind of guy, killing penalties. Went to the University of Michigan. Ended up writing for the Detroit News from 95 to 99, writing feature stories covering the Olympics and World Cups and things like that. Cool stuff. Then left that to write books and to coach this high school hockey team in 2000. So there's my crazy background. And part of that background was, in fact, that I was the worst player in school history. This is also not hyperbole. Like the previous stat, I can prove this empirically. I know your listeners like numbers. I still hold the record, Jacob, for the most games in a Huron uniform, 86. I dressed for every game for all 3 seasons we had back then. With the fewest goals, 0. And that can't be beat. If you can't play in all the games and score none of the goals, no one can beat that record. So worst player in school history, worst team in America. Yes, this is the combination we're looking for here. And that's the combination they picked. So that is not a very promising start.
How did you get that job, by the way? Did you apply for it? Did they just come to you and say, "Hey, John, we got the worst team. You're the worst player. We think you're going to be a great fit." Right? Like, how was that? I want to know how this conversation went.
Well, it's actually more than a conversation. It was a pretty formal interview process. They received dozens of applications, which may sound surprising for the worst team in America, but it had been a very good program, and it's still, a well-funded education system here in Ann Arbor and all that, and pretty serious hockey town. So we had 7 interview finalists, and then it came down to me and one other candidate with 6 people on the committee. And the final vote was 4 for him and 2 for me. And yes, Jacob, you can do the math. I should have lost right then and there, and it should have been the end. And the 4 voting against me, by the way, were the athletic director, my former 8th grade math teacher, a good friend of mine who voted for the stranger, by the way. So that's not a good sign. Her secretary, one of the parents, and the incoming captain all voted against me. These are people you really need on your side, and I did not have them. But the other 2 I had was another parent and our legendary trainer, Rod Sorge, who's a star in the book. He kept on hammering the other 4 till finally one of them, the athletic director in this case, flipped her vote. It was 3-3. The principal breaks the tie with another interview. He picked me because I went to Huron. That was it. He knows nothing about hockey. So it was largely dumb luck that I got it. And when I got it, the players and the parents were deeply unhappy. So when I talked to current employers, you're talking about the future of work. We know that recruiting right now is very hard. Retaining is very hard. Loyalty is very hard. Well, recruit to that. You're the worst player in school history, the worst team in America, and they hate you. So start there. So that was the starting point in 2000.
Why did you even apply for this job, actually? I mean, what made you want to coach this team?
It had always been a dream of mine. It pays nothing. It pays $5,000 per season, 4 months. It pays you nothing in the off season when you still have to have practices and workouts and whatnot. So it's not money. It costs you a lot of money just to do it. There's no real prestige to it. I had no plans to coach elsewhere afterwards. So that was not the idea. But I'd been a player on the team. I'd been an assistant coach in the team for 4 years, long before I was the head coach. I had coached at Culver Academies with Al Clark, who was the nation's winningest high school hockey coach. I coached baseball as well. I had always had the coaching bug. I loved coaching. I just wanted to build an experience that they would not forget. That was my ultimate goal, in a positive way, is the idea.
Yeah.
So it was. When I took the job, my dad, his first question was your question, Jacob. He said, "Why would you want to do that?"
Yeah.
I said, "It's always been my dream." And then when I told him the record of the team, he shrugged and said, and I quote, "Well, when you're on the floor, you can't fall out of bed." So there's my dad's motivational pep talk right there. And that's the name of the first chapter, actually. So thank you, Dad, for that.
I love that. When you're on the floor, you can't fall off the bed. That's a great quote. Okay, so you're clearly in a, what's the nice way to put this? Not a good spot, right? A lot of people don't like you. It's the worst team, worst player. People are mad. The captain is mad, and it's your first day. So you show up to work, you're coaching this team. What do you even say to these people? Do you remember what your first day was like?
Very clearly, and it's in the book also. But before that, I met with my mentor, Al Clark of Culver Academies, the guy with the most wins of anybody. He started in 1976 with an outdoor rink and 12 Hispanic kids who never skated before. Bottom skates in South Bend, Indiana, and the 3rd year they're state champs. 4th year they're state champs.
Wow.
8 straight state champs, till finally they had a B team. They would go win the state title, and this is one of the best programs in the country. And he's also a Phi Beta Kappa math department chairman, which is very unusual. So he didn't cut any corners. So this guy's my hero and a great mentor to have. And one bit of advice I've got for your younger listeners out there is early on, don't worry about money. Put mentors over money. The money isn't that great when you start out anyway. So if you get a good mentor, you're heading in the right direction. And without that, it's going to be hard. So I asked my mentor, Al Clark, what do I do here? And he said, the first thing you've got to do is to make it special to play for Huron. And Jacob, me being a smart aleck, I said, well, we're already the worst team in America. That's pretty special. And he said, no. He said, the easiest way to make it special is to make it hard. I'll say it again. The easiest way to make it special is to make it hard. That's utterly paradoxical. It is the opposite of what everyone was telling me about the millennials is now Generation Z, of course. They're lazy, they're entitled, you need beanbag chairs, you need casual Fridays and Taco Tuesdays. No, he said, raise the bar right away. Look at the Navy SEALs. The Navy SEALs, the hardest job in the world, $54,000. They take 6% because they're selling the mission. They're selling the hard. They're not trying to sugarcoat it. So that's what I did. I sent out a letter to all the players before I even met them. And I said, congratulations, you are trying out for the hardest working high school hockey team in the state of Michigan. And we were. And then I met with the team in Mike Henry's back deck. He's the captain, who ended up being a great, phenomenal captain, but he voted against me the first time. We're now great friends. And I had a questionnaire in that first letter. Just a one-page questionnaire, basic stuff. How long have you been playing hockey?
Yeah.
What position? What do you like most about it? How can I coach you better? Simple stuff you can do off the top of your head. And of the 15 guys who showed up in Henry's back deck that day, 3 turned it in. 3. That's 20%. And so after learning all their names and learning all their stories and being nice at first, I chewed them out. And I said, this is the problem. It's not Trenton, our arch rival, the best team in the state. It's not arch rival across town, Ann Arbor Pioneer. It's this. If we can't do this, was it too hard? Was it complicated? You had my number, you had my email, you had my snail mail address. Did anybody contact me and said I need an extension or had a question? No, none of you did. You failed miserably at this. And this is the problem. If we can't do this, we can't do anything. And I said, I'll see you at the workout on Monday. And I walked off. And I joked with my assistant coach that you might be the head coach by the end of the day. But the whole point of the wake up is what you're doing is not nearly good enough. We can't function this way and get anything good done. And the key there, by the way, was I always focused on behaviors and not outcomes, because I could not guarantee any outcomes. We're the worst team in America. How long will it take us to, when you have 0 wins, you don't know how far below 0 you really are. If you have 4 wins, you know you're 1 win away from 5. If you have 0, you don't know how many wins you are, how many games you are from just 1 win. You don't know. So I couldn't guarantee any of that. We focus on behaviors always and not the outcomes. And we only had 2 rules: work hard, support your teammates. That's it. If we do those 2 things, I'm happy. And if we don't do those 2 things, I'm not happy. And my word had to be good.
Yeah. So it sounds like you actually
That's
came
a lot.
in with
Sorry.
No. It's actually quite interesting because it seems like you started off with a little bit of a tough love approach, which I think a lot of actually, I don't know, maybe you would have some insight. Are leaders comfortable with this tough love approach? I feel like they're worried about saying something like this because they don't want employees to say, oh, you were mean to me, you were rude to me, I can't work here anymore. I mean, I grew up with Russian immigrant parents, right? So all I knew was tough love growing up. So, I mean, I don't know. Where do you stand on that? Are we a little too soft for tough love today?
That's what they said then also. And that's what they said. I still teach at Michigan, and they say that about the Michigan students, and it's not true.
Yeah.
Now, you won't get all of them, but you don't want all of them. That's a key.
Yeah.
Will you get all of them? No. Will some of them walk away? Maybe. And that's okay. The Navy SEALs take 6%. The Peace Corps, different sides of the political spectrum perhaps, very hard jobs, very rigorous interview process for what? Make a few $100s to dig ditches in the poorest countries in the world. They take 1 out of 6 applicants. So they're not selling the salary, they're selling the mission. I was going to sell the mission. So do you get them all that way? No, you don't. But it's worth noting that all those workouts, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, weight room first and on the track, and we don't waste a minute. It's just hard 90 minutes or so. And they're voluntary workouts by state law. I can't make you come. All right, that's the law of the land. Not one player quit from the worst team in America. That shows you how hungry people actually are for a real challenge, a real mission, somebody to believe in them, somebody to push them. And so I would still advocate this approach. Now, it's not just tough love. If it's just that, you're going to lose them anyway. That same day, we also designed new uniforms. The senior class did. They got a lot of love for being on the team, a lot of attention, a lot of positive reinforcement. I didn't yell at them very often. The yelling was, hey, we can do this. But if you lower the bar, you've already compromised your mission anyway. So you've already lost, in my opinion.
It seems like this starts with having that mission, right? Because if you make it about the mission and not about the money, you need to make sure first that you have a mission that is worth fighting for. So how do you start with that? Because, a lot of companies, they might say, oh, we just want to be number 1 for customer satisfaction, or we want to create the best products, and, we're going to give them tough love and hope they fight for that mission. It's not a very inspiring or motivational mission. So how do you start there to make sure that you have that mission? I mean, is that something that you focus on too?
Absolutely. Two things, both in that first letter. This is before I met them again. One was congratulations, you are trying out for the hardest working high school hockey team in the state, which we already talked about, and we were. So right there, out of 200 teams, that's pretty cool for a team. And the cool part about this book, by the way, is my players are now in their 30s. They're about your age or so, and they can now look back on the experience and know what mattered and what didn't. These are all leaders now themselves with wives and kids in many cases. So they chipped in a lot of great stuff. And as one of the players said, when you have not done anything in a year and a half, in 2 years, and somebody believes you can, even be the hardest working team in the state, that attracts you. So that's one thing right there. And even in that first letter, I said, our goal is nothing less than a state title. Now that's quite crazy for the worst team in America. But I said, but I mean it. It won't happen this year, but it's going to happen sooner than you think. And when it does happen, those guys are going to invite you back at the senior banquet and give you a standing ovation. So off the start, day one, we're going to be the hardest working team in America, in the state of Michigan. Day one also, we are now fighting for a state title. Daniel Burnham, who built modern Chicago, had a great line. And this is in the 1890s. He said, "Make no small plans. They lack the power to stir your soul." If the pitch is, "Hey, let's go out and be mediocre," good luck. That ain't gonna work, and you won't get the right people. And again, I stress this: you want to attract the right people.
Yeah.
And if you lower the bar, the hot shots don't want that. The hot shots are going somewhere else.
Yeah. And you make an important point, which is it's not about attracting and keeping everybody. It's about keeping the people that you want to have. And
Right.
I think a lot of organizations are very obsessed with tenure and how do we get people to stay as long as possible. But the reality is that we need to be focusing on getting the right people to stay, and not just getting everybody to stay. Because it's kind of like being in a relationship where it doesn't make sense. You don't get a prize for being in a relationship the longest. You want to be in a relationship where you're both growing and developing, you love each other, and it's, it's good for everyone, not just because you're in it for so long. So I love that
not
approach.
the goal. I agree with you entirely. When I see a company with less than 10% turnover, I get a little nervous. Now, more than 20% is a different problem, of course, and that's the more common problem. But as I said, though, amazingly, not one player quit. They all could have, and none of them did. I was not expecting that, frankly. So you might be surprised by how positive these results are, even from the quote-unquote worst team in America. These guys had kind of every bad habit you'd expect, but they were so hungry for a mission, for a purpose, for a sense of belonging, that they ate it up. But you only get that if you ask for it.
So let's start a little bit with why they were the worst team in America, and then we can talk about some of the things that you actually did to transform that. So when you came in, I mean, obviously, then you had to skate, then you had to shoot. I mean, it's right. That was the table stakes of the job. Like you need to know how to skate, you need to know how to pass the puck and stuff like that. So they were clearly competent in that regard. Otherwise, they wouldn't have been on the ice. So what was the problem if it wasn't with their technical skills?
A few things. One, when you lose that many games that often, morale could not be much lower. That was a problem, of course. They did no work in the off season, which these days you have to do. That's in part because after you lose every game, who wants to do more of this? So that's another problem, of course. They had a basic level of talent, as you point out. I mean, soccer, anyone can walk, right? I mean, you might not be a very good soccer player, but everyone knows how to walk. You have to know how to skate to play hockey to begin with. We didn't have very many travel team players in our team. We also had a number of very good players in the building who were going to Huron High School, but playing for the AAA travel teams and things like that, and not playing for the high school team. Crucial point, by the way, I did not cut a single player ever from that 0, 22, and 3 team. So some stay, they're junior, seniors, on up, and sophomores, of course. Not one player ever got cut. So we added some good players who came down later on. But we didn't cut any of those guys, and most of them played very big roles in this team. But they didn't know anything about the game of hockey. The practices were not very good. The team had not won 10 games out of 25 in more than a decade, and had already done it, period. So it was all those things combined. And the biggest thing, I mean, a lot of players on the team were talking about quitting the team before the year started and or quitting hockey itself. When you hate the game that much for a lot of reasons, you're up against it. So again, the recruiters out there, I know exactly what you're facing because I faced it. But the shocker is lowering the bar does not work. Raising it does.
Okay, so we talked about what you did kind of on day one. You sent out this letter. A lot of people didn't even respond to it. So you kind of day two, day three, day four. What were some of the things that you started to put into practice to try to transform this team around?
Well, I am pleased to report, Jacob, after my little speech in the back deck about the questionnaire, they all turned them in that Monday at our first workout. So they batted 1,000 on that one. Every single player had it. So we got that much down. Then we tried to stretch and count to get ourselves ready with the seniors in the inner circle and everyone else in the outer circle, already trying to breed layers of leadership. And we could not do this. 15, 20 minutes, we were at it. But I never took it over for them, and I never stopped. We're going to keep on going until we get this right. So it was, frankly, pretty pathetic. And it was not because these guys weren't smart or didn't care. They were embarrassed to show that they cared. Being 0, 22, and 3, they chanted the record at the school dance. At the time it was 0-15 or 0-20. 0-20, the players chanted this at the dance. So the losing to become a point of pride. So that was the hardest thing, is to get them to stick their necks out for fear that they might lose. I mean, I can't guarantee victory. But that got better. The workouts got better. By the end of the summer, Jacob, every one of us had thrown up on that track, every player and the coaches. We did it with them. And you know you're turning a corner. And Al Clark, my mentor, told me this is going to happen. If they know they had to do something that not everybody would be willing to do just to be on the team, then with a little encouragement, they will enforce the culture themselves. And this is what happens in winning cultures. So sure enough, late August, and this is Michigan, so it rains cats and dogs that morning. The sun comes out. It's 93 degrees. Steam is coming off the track. It's that hot a day. So much steam that on the starting line of our track, I said, "Gentlemen, look down the football field. Can you see the goalposts?" And the air is so wiggly, you can't see the goalposts. I said, "That's right. It's the hottest hour of the hottest day of the year, and we're lucky that it falls on Wednesday at 12:30 and not Tuesday and not Thursday and not 4 o'clock. Otherwise, we'd miss our chance to prove how tough we are, how far we've come. We're not going to whine about this. We're not going to cry about this. We're going to brag about it and break every record we've got on this damn track. Who's with me?" And by then they all are, and they start getting into it, except for a new guy, a 9th grader, grumbles something. I didn't catch it. Mike Henry, my now converted captain, who is a great, great leader, he turns to the kid and says, "Hey, you play for Huron, and it's harder over here." And once I heard that, I said, "Hallelujah." That's what I was waiting to hear. And not from me, but from them. I'm 35 years old, very old to them. They don't care what I think. But Mike Henry's the coolest kid in the school. You need him. He's a senior. You're a freshman. When he starts saying that, now we've got an actual culture, and now we got it rolling. So that's when I knew that things had changed.
So from organizational speak, I guess it's kind of like having the brand champion, the culture evangelist inside of an organization, which seems like those are important people to have, the kind of the cheerleaders to get everybody else on board.
They're essential. And we're jumping ahead a little bit, but year 2, I stress this. In the book, it's establishing your standards. And that's the first thing we did. Second step is the layers of leadership. And the third one is you let them lead. They take over. But in the layers of leadership, clearly it's important to lead by example. You're from Russian immigrant parents. I guarantee you they're very hard workers, very intense, very serious. I know these people, of course, and you know them better than I do. So you know they're already leading by example. That's vital. But we had a joke in our team that leading by example was not nearly enough. And if you lead by example, you've got a name, and you're called a sophomore. Because all that means is you know your job, and you can do your job. Congratulations, you get a job. You get a jersey, you get a stall in our locker room, you get a place in our bus. But that's all you get. And if I'm an employer, you get a parking spot and a cubicle and a computer and a paycheck. But that's all you get. Your junior year, you better know your job, do your job, know everyone else's job too. And your senior year, you know your job, do your job, know everyone else's job, and help them do their jobs better. Now it's not my culture, it's your culture. It's not my team, it's your team. So do I have high standards? Is there tough love? Absolutely. But guess who runs the team, actually? You guys do. And that's something that very few bosses are willing to do. This takes courage. And everything I'm telling you, Jacob, is simple, but none of it is easy. So this takes courage to do it this way. You have to have faith in your people. And I had faith in the worst team in America because they'd shown me before the year even started how much they had changed. So it was fun to do, and it's actually cool to do.
This episode is brought to you by Namely. Running HR for a mid-sized business means you need software that can keep up with all you do. That's why you should check out Namely, the all-in-one HR solution that makes life easier for your employees, your boss, and you. Namely's HR platform covers your essential HR and compliance needs in one place. Whether you have 50 or 1,000 employees, Namely's all-in-one integrated platform is designed to be used by everyone every day. Namely has it all, from onboarding and payroll to time tracking, benefits, employee engagement, and so much more. You'll finally have the time and data you need to drive the initiatives your company really cares about. Right now, you can get a free month of unlimited access to Namely's all-in-one HR platform for being a listener of this show, but you have to go to namely.com/FOW. Again, that's namely.com/FOW to get your free month of unlimited access. So, instituted the tough love. You made it really hard. You made it special to be part of the team. Anything else that you implemented which helped transform this team?
Sure. Well, we talked about changing the culture, of course.
Yes, and having the
Being patient with the
evangelist,
results,
like
not behavior. That's big.
Yeah, so can you talk a
Another
little bit
thing,
more about
by
that?
the way, sure. Work hard, support your teammates. Those are the only two grades you get on my team, basically. Because those we can do every day we wake up. It's our choice. It's not the weather. It's not the referees. It's not the goalies. Pucks bounce. Not bad luck. None of this stuff. It's not. And look at your companies. It's not COVID. It's not the economy. It's not the FAA. It's not the SEC. It's not anything else but your attitude. Work hard, support your teammates. That's it. Who would not want to work at a place where everybody's working hard and everybody's got your back? That's exceedingly rare. And if you find one, you better hang on to it because those are the exceptions, not the rule. That's all we judged on. Now, I did have a ton of stats for every game. 15 stats per player per game.
Wow.
That's 300 stats per game, 20 players. But I never told them which one was more important. We post them on the board the next day, every day, so they could see it right away. They all went right up to that board right away. And I learned this from a speech in Santiago, Chile. I was there to speak, but the person before me had a great speech, so I took notes. And she, a researcher at, I think, Rutgers, said that high achievers love to be evaluated and low achievers hate to be evaluated. So guess what I did? I evaluated 15 stats per player per game, every game. And what happens is high achievers love it, and low achievers either become high achievers or they find somewhere else they can be mediocre. But what's great about all the stats is it wasn't just goals and assists. It wasn't just leading scorers. Everybody found a way to contribute to the team's success. It wasn't just goals and assists. If I'm running a company, don't just give me sales. Give me CSI, give me attendance, give me complaints, give me whatever else you got. Give me a whole rack of things. And there are a lot of ways you can help us. And so we talked about that a lot too. And again, reduce your rules, make them stick. Those are the behaviors, of course. Next thing, of course, second phase is building trust, layers of leadership. Before that, by the way, I got to say also, help. Get help. When I see a new leader take over, the tendency, and I know you've seen this a lot with your guests, and by the way, your guest list is incredibly impressive, and the podcast is great. Love it. Honored to be on it. What happens? Guy gets in charge. I don't care if you're 25 or 55. All of a sudden, I feel like I need all the answers. I need to be all powerful. I can't ask questions. I can't take suggestions. Those are all weakness. That guy's in trouble. That guy's going down, and when he goes all the way down, guess what? There'll be no safety net there. He has no allies left. So Warren Buffett had a great line. He said, if you think you're the smartest guy in the room, get a better room. And my goal is to be the dumbest guy in the coach's room, and I greatly exceeded my expectations. I was surrounded by fantastic assistant coaches. Strong leaders hire strong leaders, and weak leaders hire weak leaders. So Vladimir Putin, by the way, I'm sure you've got an opinion about this, but I guarantee you that he had a lot of yes men in that room, and no one had the guts to tell him the truth, that this is going to be harder than you think. Yeah. And that leads to a lot of problems. So, that's my advice there.
I have a question about one of the things that you brought up, and I'm trying to remember what it was. It was one of the first things that you said. Oh, man, it flew out of my mind.
We talked about results, not behaviors, have high standards.
Oh, yeah.
Have high big dreams.
No, it was high standards. So, there's this notion inside of organizations, right? Focus on your strengths, not your weaknesses. Not everybody could be a star player, but even if you're not a star player, you have strengths that people could focus on. John Wooden, who a lot of people consider to be like the greatest coach out of any sport in history. Right. Yeah, and he was famous for saying, I don't believe that everybody on my team is going to be an all-star. Like I can't have a team where everybody's an all-star, but I can focus on the strengths of my people.
Mhm.
Is your approach different to that? Because it sounds like you're saying everybody needs to be kind of high performing, but is that realistic inside of an organization where everyone is a high performer?
If you separate two ideas, behavior from performance,
Hmm.
behavior, guess what? That's everybody. And the bus, as we said, the bus waits for no man. If I
Yeah.
tell you the bus leaves at 5 o'clock, it's not 5:01, and I don't care if you're the leading scorer, or the starting goalie, and I've left them both in the parking lot. You go, you leave. So one set
Yeah.
of rules for everybody, and don't let your top salesperson not handle the paperwork or show up late. That's a playing favorites demoralizes the whole team. And frankly, John Wooden, and I've interviewed him a couple times, high regard for him, but on one huge issue, I've got a big disagreement. And that is, he said, the rules aren't equal, but they are fair. In other words, if you're the leading scorer, you can be 5 minutes late. If you're the scrub at the end of the bench, you can't be. That's bull. That's not a team to me. And granted, that guy's won 11 national titles in basketball, and I haven't. So pour some salt in my advice. I'm pretty hard to disagree with John Wooden, but I don't agree with that for creating a culture or a team.
Yeah.
What is across the spectrum is the performance. We had guys in the team who were our second and third year who were some of the best players in the state, who are all staters. Whereas another guy, Scotty McConnell in the book, he scored his first goal with 3.2 seconds left in his entire high school career. That's our Rudy, by the way, so from the movie. So we had a spectrum there, and playing time was not equal. That was certainly the case. The better players got more playing time. Everyone, if you dress, gets in a game. That was my rule. But the playing time will not be equal. So in that sense, performance is one thing, behavior is another, and that's where we have to separate it.
Yeah. So you
Good
focused
question.
on so you focused on the behaviors that people were exhibiting, even if they didn't achieve the results that you were hoping for. If they had those right behaviors, that mattered to you most.
That's all that mattered. It didn't. It's not all that mattered for playing time and things like that. So their performance resulted in my performance with them. But their behaviors also dictated my behaviors with them. If your behaviors are good, then you'll have the same status as everyone else on the team, the same warm-ups. You get the same attention in practice. You get the same love from us,
Yeah.
from the coaches and so on. We love them all. And one of my big points coming up, and this applies to this, is water all the plants. Don't get in the business of picking the winners. We try to predict that guy's got it, this guy doesn't. You don't know yet. Be humble enough to realize that all kinds of people, including Einstein, can surprise you down the road. This list of players like this and performers is too many to count. Tom Brady was picked, 199th, I think, in that draft. I guess he worked out pretty well, the best player in the history of football. So 5 rounds of players went before him, before he went. Water all the plants. I don't know who's going to grow. You don't know either. I don't know how far, how big, how quickly. But I know this. If you don't water them, they're not going to grow. So they all got to get the love. This is where you go from tough love to the love. All right, you all get my love. You all get my attention. You all get my respect. You got a problem, I'll stop what I'm doing to listen to you, no matter who you are in the lineup. So all that is what I give back.
But what happens if the behaviors don't lead to results? So take, for example, I don't know, a sales professional. They're exhibiting the right behaviors, but they're not closing any deals. They're not bringing any more money, whereas their peers on the team are. Do you say that you just keep that person on the team, even though they have the right behaviors, but they can't achieve the results?
We do a few things. One, first of all, be patient, because you don't know when it's going to kick in or why. Oftentimes, the best salespeople become that in year 2 or 3. Be as patient as you can be, based on your business model and so on. 2, coach the guy. All right, what are you doing well? What are you doing poorly? Not just the behaviors, but we have perhaps a sales protocol. Most companies do, of course. Are we following the protocols? Are you following up with phone calls? Are you cataloging all your calls and all your visits? Are you setting up meetings? Let's go over the particulars to make sure we're doing everything we're supposed to be doing. So that's the next thing. Third thing is, if you've been at it for 2 or 3 years, you're doing all the right stuff, not just the behaviors, but the actions, all right, to become a top salesperson, and it's not working, maybe service is your thing. If your attitude is that good, I probably want to keep you. So maybe service is your thing. Maybe sales is not a great fit for you. Maybe debugging programs is where you should be. So in that case, I want to keep you in the umbrella, but perhaps not in that role.
Got it.
And speaking of which, by the way, 3 players. We moved from decent but not great forwards to defensemen who all won best defenseman in the league by year 2. So in that case, okay, you're a good forward, but not a great one. Let's move you back on defense. Let's coach you up there. And Bobby Chappius and Perry Marilat both moved from forward to defense and won the league's best defenseman and played college hockey. So in that case, you find a new role.
It's very interesting to kind of identify other roles or areas where employees might be a good fit. So I really like that message of if people have the right behaviors, but they're not achieving the right results, you shouldn't get rid of them because they have those right behaviors, but maybe they need to be in another opportunity or in another position on the team. And I think a lot of leaders forget that, and they're very quick to just say, hey, you're not meeting your numbers, you got to go.
Well, the great Albert Einstein quote, of course, if you judge a fish on its ability to climb a tree, you don't think the fish is pretty stupid. It's not what the fish does.
No,
so if I'm judging, Perry Marilat and Bobby Chappius on how many goals they're scoring a few. They're doing okay. But let's find a new role. And they scored as many or more goals on defense, amazingly, than they had on offense. And no company that I know of has just got one role, sales or whatever. Find new roles. And on our team, we had a lot of roles. We also had penalty killers, for example. Penalty killing is not very glamorous to other people. It was to us. We kept track of penalty killing. Now, for penalty killing, I don't care if you can handle the puck or not. All I care about is can you skate fast enough to catch the guy who's got the puck. All right, and then we shoot it down the ice, and you kill the penalty accordingly. I need 1 good minute out of you per shift, and we have 2 shifts for a 2-minute penalty. And those guys had a very clear role. I used 3rd and 4th line players for those guys because I didn't want to gas my scorers for that role. Most teams do. So you try to find as many roles for all these players as you can. And also, this is important too. Even if you are a 3rd or 4th line player, I need you. I need a strong 3rd and 4th line. That was one of the greatest strengths we had as a team, is that our 3rd and 4th line was better than your 3rd or 4th line.
Yeah.
And I'd tell them that and make them feel special, that every role here is important, or else we wouldn't have a role for you. So this is big, and that's crucial. I got that from Bo Schembechler, the former Michigan football coach. He had a great line about his secretary, Mary Passink, and Lynn Cook. He said, it's not their job to open up envelopes and send out emails and answer the phones. It's their jobs to win Big Ten titles. And they do it by being the best secretaries in the Big Ten. So they're not just processing things. You're part of this team. And when you win a Big Ten title at Michigan, the lowest student manager gets the same size ring as the starting quarterback does. The women prefer pendants, but they get them also. You're all part of this team, and all of us are here to do one thing, and that is win Big Ten titles. And therefore, you're part of this greater mission.
I love that. Why does leading by fear not work?
It doesn't work. I'll say this. I think you need about 5 or 10% of fear. You have to be willing to be unpopular once in a while. You have to be willing to go off the handle once in a while, not very often. That's a trick you better use carefully. And these days, of course, that's adjustment you have to make for the modern era. You got to bring that one way down from what you're allowed to do years ago. Even as a coach, I would have to do that now. But fear itself, though, that's you versus them. If it's you versus them, you've already lost. There are more of them. I've got 25 players. I've got 6 assistant coaches. If it's me versus them, I lose the assistant coaches who are now working against me, and I lose the players who are now working against me. And then you get the quiet quitters, for example, we hear about today. The passive aggressive, screw you, I'm going to go very slowly on this. I can't monitor them all. They have to want to do it. So great line from one of my heroes, John Cooper. John Cooper was the coach of Lansing Catholic Central when I was coaching Ann Arbor Huron. He is now the coach of the Tampa Bay Lightning in the NHL. He's won 2 Stanley Cups and almost won a 3rd this year. So I guess, Jacob, our career paths somehow diverged along the way because I'm free this season, it turns out. So hats off, Coach Cooper. Great line. Bad teams, nobody leads. Good teams, coaches lead. Great teams, everybody leads. And you don't get that through fear. You get that out of respect. And another mentor of mine, a Hollywood agent, she said, movies are made for 2 reasons. One is passion, the other is fear, and fear doesn't work. So fear works for a little while, but it is ultimately corrosive. Because the ratio, early on it was tough love, but now we're getting a lot of love. And fear is not the way to go.
I'm also curious to hear your approach to setting goals, because I know that was something that you wrote about extensively in your book too. When you think in the business world how a lot of people set goals, are there any issues with that? Is there a better way for us to be thinking about how to set a goal for ourselves or for our team?
Yes, great question. I can see, Jacob, you've done your homework, so I hope your listeners appreciate that for all your many guests, you actually know about the book, of course, and know how the book works. Yes, the third section, of course, is let them lead. And one aspect of that is goal setting. What almost always happens is, and I've been to these meetings, I've spoken at these meetings, the CEO, the department chair, whoever it is, gets up there, PowerPoint, here are our goals for this year, blah, 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 blah,
Yeah.
blah. The people in that room have never seen those goals before. They will never see them again. They don't care about any of them. They had no input. They have no idea how these numbers were arrived at. There's no buy-in whatsoever. Those goals are not going to be achieved. I'm telling you that right now. So that's not how you do it. You do the opposite. And this is, again, we start letting them surprise you, letting them take over. We had 10 goals per season every season. And these we took very seriously. We laminated them. We printed them out. We put them on the walls, put them on cards in your wallet that they were required to carry around. I had only 2 of the 8 of the 10 goals. My first 2 were highest grade point in the state for high school hockey teams, and we did achieve that at 3.27. Jacob, I got to tell you, hockey teams are not known for their academics. So this was more heroic than you ever. This is not the tennis team or the cross country team or one of those high achieving bunch. This is a hockey team, so that was very impressive. Second thing was the fewest penalties in the league, which we almost got. We were second and third place out of 12. Because I knew they didn't care about those ostensibly. They're never going to pick those. 3 through 10 were all theirs, and the seniors ran the meeting. They had spent 2 or 3 days on this with the rest of the team. They would have 30 or 40 ideas and boil them down to 8. And those were their goals on the wall, and now they've got buy-in. And guess what? Here's the beautiful thing. They will raise the bar higher than you ever would. And after our first year, guess what? They had state champion as the 10th goal every year from that point forward, and we almost achieved it. So we came shockingly close.
Wow. That's awesome. So how long did it take for this
the point there is let them set their own goals, even salespeople. Let them come up with the numbers. And if they're putting the numbers too low, do you want that guy?
Yeah.
That's not a good sign.
How long did it take for this transformation to happen? And what was the ultimate transformation? Did you go from being the worst team in America to being the best team, or what was the outcome, and how long did it take?
Sure. We won our first 3 games, amazingly. We won more games in our first week than we'd won the previous 2 seasons combined. So that was good, a good week. Then we had a 10-game losing streak, but we finished the first year with 7 wins. That's the most improved team in school history. The second year, we were 16-9-2. We went from 0 to 7 to 16-9-2. That broke the record again for the most improved team. That's how bad we were, Jacob. We were the most improved team 2 years in a row. So we went from 0, the worst team in the school history, to the second best team in school history in 2 years. Again, largely the same players. I didn't cut any one of those guys. Third year, we're 17-4-5. We are number 4 in the state out of 200 teams. We are number 53 in the nation. We've passed 1,203 teams. We started at 1,256, and now we're number 53. We passed 97% of the nation's teams in 3 years. No one's done it before, and I guarantee you, it'd be extremely hard for anyone to do it again because you have to start out last. And that's only one team a year can do what we did. Start out at the bottom. That's how far and how fast we got. The next year, we're still very good, and we beat Trenton, the state champs. 4-3 at their place. We didn't win the state title, but we were good enough to win one at that point. So that dream was real from the end of the second season on. We lost to Trenton our second year in the regional finals, 3-2 at their place. We outshot them by a little bit. Their fans gave our players a standing ovation. At that point, they knew, and Trenton won the state title that year. At that point, we're that close to winning a state title.
No, I love that. One more question for you before we jump into some action items out there. It seems like one of the things that made all this possible is, as a leader, as a coach, you had to be able to connect with your people. And it doesn't seem like that's something you can really fake.
Absolutely not.
How important was that kind of connection with them? Like knowing your players on a human level, who they are as individuals, what they care about, what they value. Is that something you did? And can you speak a little bit about the difference between sort of faking it versus being genuine behind it?
You can't fake it, period. And look, your employees, you're not going to fool them. And believe it or not, you really can't fool a high school boy because those guys are cynical in many ways. Their phoniness is their probably biggest enemy. So don't even try it. Look, you either care about them or you don't. And one question I like to ask in my speeches is, who is your favorite teacher? And I bet, Jacob, off the top of your head, you can pull it up in a second. I've asked that question from Vancouver to Santiago to Sao Paulo, Brazil. I've asked it in English, Portuguese, and Espanol more than 300 times, and nobody in the world hesitates on that answer. Who was yours?
I have a few. I remember an elementary school teacher named Miss Grenier. I remember an AP psychology teacher in high school. And I remember a statistics professor that I had at UC Santa Cruz whose name is Carlos Dopkin.
Hey, that's quite a range.
And Mr.
Third
Mitchell.
grade.
Mr. Mitchell was a high school teacher.
There you go. Third grade, high school, and then, of course, college. Santa Cruz, the banana slugs. Is that them?
That is correct. Hey,
there you go.
I like that. You're
how
one of
about, how about the
people who
banana?
actually knows that.
Oh, gotta love that one, of course. When I ask the question, I get answers like that. I get third grade, I get high school, I get college. There's no similarities whatsoever. No pattern to the subject, the grade, race, gender, any of this stuff. None of it has any bearing whatsoever. It boils down to two things. Let's take Miss Grenier, for example, third grade, or Mitchell is your high school teacher?
Yeah, Mr. Mitchell was my psychology teacher in high school.
All right, question. Was he easy?
No, in fact, I didn't do particularly well in his class.
And he's still one of your favorites.
Yeah.
That's pretty amazing. Did he care about you?
Yeah, he definitely cared about the students in there. In fact, me and several other students would spend some time talking to him after class. Even after the bell rang, we still wanted to talk to him.
Stay after class, talk to you. That's it. That's the whole thing. Everything else is details. I got a lot of details in the book. But if I care about you, but I don't push you, I'm a pushover, and I need you on my schedule. God bless you, but I will not remember you. If I push you, this is back to your earlier point about tough love. If I push you, but I don't care about you, I'm a jerk, and I will remember you, but not fondly. And that's the model we were talking about earlier. That does not work either. So right now what we're doing the softy. We're here, the beanbag chairs and the casual Fridays, Taco Tuesdays, and so on. That doesn't work. It just doesn't. They like the stuff. No. They're gonna like it. They won't perform any better. The other way also does not work. If I push you, but I don't care about you, that doesn't work. All it is your favorite teacher. I care about you so much that I will stay after school, I'll talk to you over lunch to make sure you achieve our high standards, the goals that you have set for yourself. That's what a great leader actually does. So in that sense, that's how the whole thing boils down, really.
Thanks for tuning into this episode with John. Remember, if you're a subscriber of the show, which I hope you will be, you'll get access to a new bonus episode where John talks about how leaders can be great coaches, mistakes leaders make when coaching their people, and how to avoid them, and how to lead from respect instead of a position of power. It's just $4.99 a month or $49.99 a year, and you're going to get access to one of these bonus episodes every week, ad-free listening, and early access to new content. I promise you it's going to be a very, very valuable purchase for you, so I hope you decide to subscribe and support the show.